Okay, ready to dive deep into the giants shaping, well, pretty much your entire kitchen pantry.
Let's do it.
Today, we're pitting two heavyweights against each other, Nestle and Mondelez International.
The Titans.
Yeah, exactly. And we've got this fascinating article here that really pulls back the curtain on how these massive players operate and go head-to-head.
Absolutely. These aren't just companies, right? Their brands are woven into daily life all over the world. Think about your morning coffee, maybe that late night snack.
Totally.
They have these enormous global footprints, these really influential brand portfolios that honestly shape how billions of people eat, snack, and shop.
Exactly. And our mission today, sticking only to the insights from this source, is to really unpack that comparison. We want to see the core differences in their strategies, how they get their competitive edge.
What makes them tick, basically, at this massive scale.
Right.
So on one side, you've got Nestle, Swiss company, world's largest food and beverage company, officially. And their strategy is all about diversification, huge diversification.
Baby food, bottled water, medical nutrition.
Pet care, prepared meals, they're
Yeah.
just everywhere.
And then you have Mondelez,
Yeah.
U.S.-based, spun out of Kraft Foods, remember?
Yeah.
Their approach, totally different, like a laser focus specifically on snacking.
Biscuits, chocolates, gum, candy.
Mm.
That is their entire world.
What's really interesting, though, and the article points this out, is that even with these seemingly opposite strategies,
Mm-hmm.
massive breadth versus sharp focus,
Yeah.
they still end up competing directly.
In a surprising number of markets and categories, yeah.
Right. And as we dig into this article, one thing becomes crystal clear. Market research isn't just like a side project for them.
Oh, no.
It feels like the actual engine driving everything they decide.
Mhm.
It's totally core to their competitive strategy.
It really is fundamental. Okay, so let's actually unpack this comparison, maybe starting with those core business models, because they really do represent fundamentally different philosophies in the food world.
You said it. Nestle's model is all about that deep, deep product diversification. They're in, like, almost every food and beverage category you can think of.
And the source highlights a key insight here. This isn't just about being big for the sake of being big.
Right.
The real strategy is how this huge diversity acts as a kind of strategic shield. It helps them absorb shocks, if one market segment takes a dip.
Makes sense.
And it also creates these opportunities for cross-selling, for bundling things across different categories and regions, ways a more focused company just couldn't manage.
That's smart. And they also have this intense focus on regional customization.
Mm-hmm.
Global brands we all recognize, Maggi, Nescafe, Kit Kat.
Classics.
But the article points out they aren't just sold the same way everywhere. They're specifically adapted.
Yeah, local flavors, different packaging, marketing, that really speaks to cultural nuances. That flexibility is a massive asset, especially in really diverse global markets and developing economies.
You need that local touch.
Definitely. And when it comes to innovation, Nestle is described as being heavily R&D driven. They're placing these big bets on long-term shifts. Think nutrition, wellness, sustainability science.
Right. The article even mentions their strategic investments in food tech and even health science divisions.
Yeah, essentially betting on transforming the future of food through, scientific advancement, long game.
Okay, now contrast that with Mondelez. Their model is streamlined, totally zeroed in only on snacking and indulgence.
We're talking those powerhouses: Oreo, Cadbury, Toblerone, Ritz, Belvita.
Big names.
They're not trying to fill your whole pantry, are they? They're trying to dominate specific moments in your day.
Ah, that moment-based eating thing the article mentioned.
Exactly. That quick energy boost in the morning, the afternoon pick-me-up, maybe relaxing in the evening. They want their snack to be the choice for that exact moment.
And because they're so focused, their innovation looks really different too. The article says they're incredibly agile.
Mm-hmm. Built around rapid consumer testing, fast prototyping, they're constantly launching limited editions.
Which lets them jump on short-term trends super fast.
Right. And it also means they can pour resources into brand storytelling, experiential marketing, which, let's be honest, is pretty crucial if you're selling an emotional connection through a cookie or a chocolate bar. So you really see that core strategic difference. Nestle kind of hedging its bets across this vast empire, investing in long-term scientific transformation.
While Mondelez is focused like a laser on owning the snacking moment, using cultural agility and rapid relevance.
It's really two distinct competitive playbooks.
But how do they actually know what moments you want to own or, which flavors need a bit less sugar? Which brings us right back to how they use market research, not just as a tool, but as a strategic driver.
Yeah, okay, so for Nestle, their research approach seems to be about combining their huge global scale with really deep local insight.
How do they do that?
Well, they integrate these massive global consumer surveys with like granular health trend analytics and specific regional feedback loops. It's multi-layered.
And the article gives a really concrete example of this actually working. The reformulation of sugar and salt in huge brands like Milo and Maggi.
Right. That wasn't just some corporate guess.
No, the source says it was a direct response to specific health-conscious consumer feedback coming straight out of markets like Asia and Latin America. Their research is literally changing the recipes.
Exactly. And they also use predictive modeling to try and anticipate future shifts, like the big move towards functional foods or, plant-based options.
That forward-looking, data-driven insight must be critical for a company operating across so many different dynamic categories. Helps them stay ahead.
Absolutely. Keeps them in that leadership position.
Now, Mondelez approaches research through a different lens, right?
Yeah.
More focused on behavioral insights.
Very much so. They're trying to dissect why and when you snack, looking for the emotional triggers, the occasions behind the choice.
It's less about predicting huge health trends decades out.
Yeah, and more about understanding the immediate human behavior around indulgence. What makes you reach for that treat right now?
So what kind of tools do they use for that?
Some pretty interesting ones mentioned in the article: AI-enabled sentiment analysis, virtual taste testing panels, even something called mobile ethnography.
What's that?
It's basically researchers observing consumer behavior kind of in their natural environments, but via mobile tech.
Wow, okay.
And these tools are designed to pinpoint not just what you might eat, but the specific circumstances and, importantly, the feelings that lead you to grab a snack.
And that understanding, it has a direct, tangible impact then.
Oh, yeah. The article makes it clear. It influences everything: what new flavors they launch, how big the portions are.
I mean, where it sits on the shelf.
Exactly. Shelf placement in a physical store, or even how it pops up when you're scrolling online. It's that granular.
What seems clear, though, is that both companies rely heavily on digital listening and real-time analytics now.
Totally. The article points out Nestle using these global data hubs to track online conversations about food, nutrition trends.
While Mondelez uses consumer co-creation, like in their Snack Futures Innovation Hub, to literally build future products with consumers.
Right. So it's not some dusty report sitting on a shelf somewhere.
Definitely not. For both these giants, consumer insight from market research is front and center. It's a core strategy driver, aligning everything from, where they source ingredients.
That's how they make packaging sustainable.
To their whole innovation pipeline and how they actually talk to you in their marketing. It connects everything.
And this leads us really naturally into another major force reshaping both their strategies: that surging global demand for more sustainable and healthier food choices.
Yeah, this is huge right now, isn't it?
It is. And Nestle has made some incredibly ambitious commitments, things like net zero emissions by 2050, big investments in regenerative agriculture.
Pushing for recyclable packaging, that whole pivot into plant-based development.
Mm-hmm. The article specifically highlights acquisitions like Garden of Life and Sweet Earth as really strategic moves into that wellness space.
And driven by that health-focused market research we were just talking about.
Exactly. They're actively reformulating products, kind of quietly lowering sugar, sodium, saturated fat.
And they're targeting specific groups, right?
Right.
Like parents and millennials who are actually reading the labels now.
Yeah, consumers who check. And their sustainability messaging often leans into the science, their corporate leadership position.
Okay, but Mondelez, with that laser focus on indulgence, that seems like a unique challenge here.
It is.
How do you market sustainability and health when your main thing is a cookie or a chocolate bar?
It forces a different kind of approach. The article mentions their focus on enhancing transparency, offering portion-controlled packs as an option.
Ah, the smaller sizes.
Right, and increasing the use of whole grains or more natural ingredients where they can, under their whole Snacking Made Right banner.
And crucially, the article says market research was key in pushing these changes.
Yeah, it showed that consumers felt a bit uncomfortable, with the idea of overconsumption and packaging waste, even when it came to treats.
So that forced Mondelez to adjust their strategy, their messaging.
Exactly. And their messaging is less about leading with the hard science, maybe more lifestyle-oriented, framing Snacking Made Right around, conscious choices and everyday behavior.
So even though their approaches differ quite a bit because of their core businesses.
Both companies now clearly understand that ESG, environmental, social, governance metrics aren't just optional extras anymore. They're absolutely integral to brand trust and consumer perception.
And that research provides the vital data to talk about these efforts credibly. You can't just say it.
I have to show it.
Okay, finally, let's zoom out a bit and look at how their sheer global scale gives them competitive muscle, even if they flex it differently.
Nestle's scale is just, well, staggering. Operating in over 180 countries, managing more than 2,000 distinct brands.
2,000 brands.
It gives them unmatched distribution, the ability to shift capital, resources, innovations across borders at, like, lightning speed.
And the article notes their supply chain resilience, too. Built up over decades, a major advantage during disruptions like, the pandemic or geopolitical stuff.
Definitely. And they've also invested heavily in local manufacturing and sourcing in developing regions. That builds local trust, reduces risk compared to just relying on imports.
Makes sense. What about Mondelez?
Yeah.
Fewer brands overall, but still a powerhouse.
Still a global powerhouse, operating in over 150 countries. But their strategic reach is much more laser-focused on high-growth snacking markets. Think places like India, Southeast Asia, Latin America.
And they leverage incredibly strong brand equity in those places, right? The article uses Cadbury in India as this powerful example.
Yes, describing it not just as a chocolate brand, but almost a cultural icon, deeply woven into daily life, festivals.
Wow.
And that's key. They build on that by integrating local festivals, regional flavors, cultural narratives right into their products and marketing.
So that regional adaptation combined with their agile behavioral research
Allows them to connect on a deeper emotional level and often achieve faster growth in those emerging economies compared to maybe companies with a broader but less culturally embedded approach.
And of course, you can't talk about competition today without talking about the digital space, the modern battleground.
Absolutely. Both are rapidly scaling up their e-commerce efforts, including initiatives to sell directly to you online DTC.
Direct to consumer, yeah. And offering online exclusives.
And their tactics differ a bit too. Nestle leverages its huge data infrastructure for really precise targeting across digital ads and platforms.
While Mondelez, often targeting younger, maybe more mobile-first consumers.
Relies heavily on mobile campaigns, influencer collaborations, that kind of thing.
But ultimately, in the digital world, that ability to use granular market research for segmentation for real-time targeting, that's absolutely critical for winning future growth.
Doesn't matter if you sell everything or just snacks. That insight is key online.
Hey, here's a fast fact from the article that really hammers home the power of these brands and the deep consumer loyalty they've built, which, as we said, is fueled by all this insight.
God.
In 2022 alone, Mondelez's single brand, Oreo, surpassed $4 billion in annual global revenues.
$4 billion. Just Oreo. That's incredible.
Isn't it? And the article also points out that Nestle's Nescafé remains one of the top 3 most valuable beverage brands worldwide.
Those numbers aren't just sales figures, are they? They're a testament to unbelievable brand power, rooted in understanding and connecting with consumers over decades.
So, stepping back from this deep dive, what are the really big takeaways here?
Well, we've definitely seen that fundamental strategic contrast, right? Between Nestle's vast, resilient diversification
And Mondelez's sharp, agile focus squarely on that snacking moment.
We've really highlighted how they leverage market research in distinct but equally critical ways. Nestle using it for predicting long-term trends, ensuring global to local relevance.
And Mondelez really digging into those behavioral insights to own specific snacking occasions.
And how they're both grappling with these major shifts like sustainability and health, adjusting strategies, adjusting messaging.
Always guided by what consumers are telling them, even though their responses look pretty different based on their core business.
And finally, how their massive global footprints, whether through sheer scale and resilience like Nestle, or that strategic, culturally relevant reach like Mondelez, provide unique and really powerful competitive advantages.
Yeah, at every level, it seems clear that understanding you, the consumer, through market research, it isn't just a supporting act for these guys.
No, it's the main performance. It drives everything from the products they make to how they deliver them to the stories they tell about them.
So I guess the final thought is, given these very different paths to massive success, and how deeply both rely on understanding consumer behavior, how might knowing all this change the way you look at the snack aisle, or maybe the beverage section, the next time you're standing there?
Yeah, something to consider from this deep dive.